Alright, for our assignment this week, we are making the background of a snow globe. And then we are also going to paint the background for some buildings that we are going to draw next week. But it's going to look something like this by the end. And then next week we'll continue working on it. The first thing we have to do is mix our paint. So I've got my paint poured out on my plate here. I've got blue, red, and yellow, the primary colors. Now I need to do some mixing to make the rest of my colors. First one I'm going to make is orange. So I'm going to take some red, scoop it up, and then put it on another part of my plate. Don't need very much. And then I'm going to scrape off that paint, wash off my brush, dry it off, and then take some yellow, scoop it up, put it next to it. I think I'm going to need some more. Alright, and then I'm going to mix it together to make my orange. Perfect. Now I need to clean off my brush, and I'm going to make purple next. So purple is made using red and blue, so I'm going to take some red. Scrape off my brush, clean it. And then take some blue and mix it in there. And now I've got some purple. Scrape off my brush, and now I'm going to clean it so I can make some green. Alright, so I'm going to take some yellow. Oop, I got some blue in it already. Clean it off. And get some blue and mix that all together. And now I have some green. My plate is kind of messy, but that's okay because it's just for mixing paint. It can be a little bit messy. I'm gonna scrape off my brush and then clean it. Now I have all the colors that I need to use for my art project. Now that I mixed my colors, the first thing I need to do is to draw my snow globe so that it looks something like this before I can paint it. So I found another paper plate that I'm going to use to trace the circle for my snow globe. So you could use a plate, you could use any container, but it's helpful to make a really nice round circle. And I'm going to put it towards the top of my paper. So I have some space at the bottom, and that's going to be where my base of my snow globe is. So I'm just going to use a marker to trace around the plate. Alright, now I have a really nice circle. And the base is kind of like a rectangle with a round bottom. Kind of like that. Now I'm ready to paint, and when we paint, we are going to be making our paint a little bit more like watercolor, so it's nice and light. So when we paint, we're not just going to dip our paintbrush into the paint, we're going to dip our paintbrush into the water and then put some water on the paint so that it's nice and watery and thin and very light, so it will give it a cool, snowy effect. Alright, so my video cut me off, but I am making sure that I dip my paintbrush into some water before I dip it into the paint so that it's nice and watery and I can spread it around. And if it's too dark, I can dip my paintbrush back in the water and put the water on there to lighten it up. So I'm going to keep doing this with each color that I choose to use. It doesn't have to be the same as mine. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to make sure each time I dip my paintbrush into some water to get it nice and watery so I can spread it around. And if it's too dark, I can dip it back into the water to spread it around and lighten it up. I'm going to do this until my whole snow globe is painted. Alright, so my snow globe is painted. The next thing you can paint is the bottom, and the bottom of your snow globe, you don't have to use water if you don't want to. I'm going to make mine using just the normal thick paint without adding some water, just so it looks different than the snow globe. I'm gonna make mine red. Alright, so I painted my snow globe and I painted the base. So now that needs to dry, so I'm gonna set it aside. And the next step is to paint the background for our buildings that we are going to draw next week. So I'm going to get my other piece of paper and I'm going to basically make some stripes. But the important thing is to make one dark stripe of a color and then a light one. So I didn't use very much water on this one, and then I added more water so that it became lighter. So I've got dark blue and light blue, and then a dark red with a lighter red, a dark yellow, a light yellow, a dark green, and a light green. So I can pick any color. You don't have to do the same ones that I do. You can decide whatever you would like. But we're gonna do a dark and a light version. So I don't have very much water on my paintbrush. Maybe I'll add a little bit more. I'm gonna do some red and just a stripe all the way across the paper. I'm gonna be careful on the edges because I don't have anything underneath except for the table, so I don't wanna get a lot of paint on the table. So I'm gonna kind of not go all the way to the edge, but pretty close. And just paint a nice stripe with not very much water, so it's nice and dark. Alright, now I can add some water to my brush, really dip it in there. Now it's going to turn to a lighter shade of red. I'm going to keep dipping it in the water and not in the paint, just so it stays nice and light all the way across. Okay, now I can switch colors, so I'm going to clean my brush off. And dry it off, and I think I'm going to do blue next. So not very much water. I'm going to do some dark blue right next to my last stripe, just so we use up our whole paper. Then, now that I'm done with my darker color stripe, I'm going to add some water. I'm not going to dip it back in the paint. Add some more water. And now I'm done with my lighter one, so I'm going to do a different color and clean it off. Dry my paintbrush, and I think I'm going to do an orange. I'm going to keep doing this until my whole paper is full. Now I have my finished paper of my dark and light stripes and my finished painted snow globe. So I'm going to set these aside, put them somewhere safe where I won't forget them or lose them, and let them dry. And then next week we are going to continue on by drawing our cities, cutting them out, and gluing them into the snow globe. So make sure you keep these, hold on to them, don't lose them. We're going to use them next week.